Hello everyone, welcome to DelphiCon 2021. Now we are talking about why does the cloud matter for a Delphi developer. In your agenda we will see how to use cloud in Delphi and why to use cloud, architecture and options to use it, and how to apply in a practical way. About the speaker, I am John Mai, Embarcadero Delphi and C++ Builder MVP. I am Delphi Master Certified, Control and Automation Engineer, and I work as a Development Manager at Aquasoft. So why cloud is relevant? Well, uh, this phrase from Meet Sloan podcast tells us that cloud is the most focal investing technology for 2022. In this Meet Sloan episode, they tell us that not only large companies, but even small companies will be focusing a lot of investments on cloud in the next year. And maybe that makes sense with this phrase of Adrian Cockcroft, uh, AWS Cloud Vice President, where he says it's a change registered by financial aspect, not only tech. Well, what does he mean? Does he mean with this phrase? Is that clouds not only change the way that we do tech, cloud will change we spend money with IT departments, and we all know when we talk about how much we will spend and how much the companies must invest in IT or the financial aspect of the IT uh, is a very important aspect of every project. So when we are talking about IT, we must consider financial aspect. And when cloud is a good option for financial aspect, we obviously will have contact with cloud. So many ways cloud can change. Cloud can reduce infrastructure investment. So um, if our company is growing and we need new server, we just need to buy new hardware, okay, new people to deal with that hardware. In the cloud we don't need that. uh, with the cloud we have less dependency on third-party knowledge. I mean, we don't need more people to deal with more hardware that we don't have. We have everything on the cloud, and with management console we just configure, set our default skins and settings on our cloud environment, and everything will run just right, and we don't need to know how to install many systems and deal with all of that. And the last and maybe the most important aspect of the cloud is the control or elasticity of the spend. I mean, if our company are growing this year, maybe we need a larger server, and we all know that hardware is very expensive nowadays. And maybe next year our company will not grow more, or even worse, maybe our company will lost some customers. And if we had bought a wholly new IT system, a wholly new IT hardware, what we'll do with that? We can't even sell that. It's old technology. Next year, the technology of this year is old technology. So we will never get that money back. Okay, with cloud, we are using cloud this year and our company is growing. Okay, we go to the cloud management console and configure that our needed uh, will be growing. And for the next year, we just reduce how much we wanted to spend. We can even set some control lines of how much we want to spend. We can even tell the cloud providers, many cloud providers offer this service where they can even call us to tell that we reach the control point of our spend. And we can even set a close call line where if the spend reach that value, the service will be stopped. Okay, so we have the total control of the spend with the cloud. And with hardware, we don't have that kind of control. And this is a feature that clouds provide that we don't have any similar feature in the hardware market. Okay, and I don't want to talk a lot about the financial aspect and the cost aspect of the cloud, okay? I think that is more important that we as developer here see more technical aspect of the cloud, okay? But I put here some links where you can go to check, to calculate, okay? I will not focus on only one cloud provider on this talk, okay? Because I will focus on the concept of using cloud. So you can use that with many cloud providers, any cloud provider that you want. Um, these three links here you can use to calculate some IT project and compare how much you spend with hardware or with cloud providing. Okay, I did that for my own company, and I estimate a project that we did in 2015 and was starving. How much money we can save it in that year if we use cloud instead of buy hardware. And maybe for your company the value will be as much as greater as ours. Okay, so I'm not telling you that technology will not evolve with cloud. Okay, I'm just telling that the most relevant aspect of cloud is financial, but we can have some technology advantages with cloud. But notice that this technology advantage we can also use without cloud, most of them. Why? Because cloud is just another person computer in a simple way to deal with that. Okay, cloud is just another person computer, so we can build all the cloud features in our own IT department. We don't need to use necessarily cloud to have access to that. But with the financial aspect, of course, we don't have that intention. We want to use external cloud providers because of the financial aspect. Okay, so what is more common to do with cloud is going through a monolithic structure. Okay, a structure where we has only one application as a backend or only one application as a client server single application, and we partitionate that or in services or in functions. Okay, and we will see how to apply this kind of model in the cloud models that we have available. Okay, what is cloud? Well, by definition of NIST, we have at least three ways to deal with cloud. AAS, infrastructure as a service, where we get the hardware. This is the most expensive way to deal with cloud, but also is the most simple way because we just just virtualize our existing machines or existing IT department and cloud machines. And many companies use this model because it's simple to adapt. And after using this model, uh, gradually change to the new cloud approaches. Okay, so think of that. If you want to go fast to the cloud, EAS maybe is your guy. But remember, this is the most expensive way to use cloud in major cloud providers. We have PaaS, Platform as a Service, where we can use some platform already set it. In this case, we don't care about the hardware. We just have to care about some platform to put our applications. For example, we can have some Apache or some ES and just put our own application over there. And other model is SaaS, where we use some software as a service. We use some software from a third party company, and with not necessarily using some interface, we can use that software as an API integrated in our own applications. Okay, there are many uh, companies selling that service nowadays, but this was the meaning, selling the software as a tool or a solution. Okay, remember, cloud is something to sell, so many cloud providers generate many models. I also don't want to talk about each cloud service and how they distantiate each one from other. Okay, I will just going through some popular cloud services and how we can use that in our own applications with Delphi. Okay, maybe some other cloud providers has other services, or maybe when you are watching this session, there are newest way to deal with cloud. But now we have some kind of communication with cloud, and we will see some of them. Okay, so cloud market share, why does it matter? We have here the graph of cloud infrastructure markets, service market for first quarter of 2020. And as you can see here, Amazon is the most large market share of cloud providers. After that comes Microsoft, and after that Google. We have many other cloud providers, but these three are the three owners of the market of the cloud. Okay, and another graph here, we can see that in 2020, many of the cloud providers growing more than 50%. Okay, everyone here that deal with IT department, deal with a project, or deal with a company knows that growing more than 50% is a very impressive number. Okay, and as you can see on the graph, many of the cloud are growing more than 50% for more than 1 year. So think of that as a very growing market, and a market that is growing very, very fast. Okay, and just to have an estimation, you can see here from Statista that they in 2016 estimate how much cloud will be as a global market, how many $billion cloud will be in 2020. Well, they estimated 236 billions, and what was done in 2020 was 219 billions, a very, very close call. So why does it matter? Well, now they are estimated for 2028 791 billion. People, is a very large number. Okay, it's a very expressive market. Just we have a notion, only the cloud market, if the cloud market reach this value, they alone can be a G20 economy. Okay, And if the last estimations were very close and this next estimation are right, will be a very, very large market. And a market of that size probably will affect us as developer, whatever you are, whatever technology you use. Okay, so just a little review. Cloud is already in use. It's not new. There are large companies using for a large time, like Netflix are using cloud since 2012, and there are large growth estimate from the years to come in cloud market. Cloud can reduce investment on IT for you and for your customers, where the software that you implemented may be run. And there are technical aspects of the cloud, not only financial aspects. Okay, we can go into cloud only for technical aspects, but the most impressive one is the financial. Okay, let's dive in the architectural options. I will show this picture on the end of the presentation so we can talk more about the pros and cons about cloud. Uh, Here we have the first way to deal with cloud. EAS, infrastructure as a service, is fast to adapt, as I told you before. Don't change nothing in your applications. I mean, if you are using DNS for your server-side application, if your application are multi-tier application, you don't have to change anything. You don't just change your DNS and start to using the new virtualized server. Okay, and so it's very fast to adapt. From a programmer point of view, don't change anything. The last of this model is that is more expensive than other cloud architectures. PaaS, platform as a services, we don't need to deal with hardware, as I told you before. It's easy to deal with the platform because we don't have to configure an Apache or a node provider. We just have to use the management console, whatever the cloud player that you are using, and still more expensive than other cloud options, but less expensive than EAS. And remember, for the programming point of view, for developer point of view, this platform doesn't change anything. If we are already using Apache or EAS to publish our services, we just use it as before. We don't have to change anything in our source code to use this platform as a service. Okay. Well, SaaS, here we have maybe some difference. Maybe we already are using SaaS. Okay. Maybe for you uh, is very similar, but many companies that I see from the last years usually implement their own uh, task manager tool. There are very common practice for many companies implement their own management tool. And last years we have seen more and more companies using um, Jira, Altasian. Okay, so for these management tools, we already have the movement to go to the cloud. Maybe we don't think about it when we did it, but we already did it. Okay, we are moving some services to the cloud and don't even thinking about it. Okay, and the ways to deal with SaaS that is that we can use SaaS from other um, implementers to accelerate our own product, our own solution. Okay, there are many software providers that are selling just slices of their product where you can integrate or by API or by specific server call and put that slice of their tool, their solution in your own application. And as well as you can sell your own software, some business model that maybe you have very right done, and you can put that on a web server and sell that as a SaaS. Okay, from a developer perspective, we just have to consume some API. So for we sell or we consume some SaaS service, we just have to consume some API, just that. We don't have to change any other thing in our own application. Okay. Uh, we have BaaS, backend as a services. Okay. Provide complete backend structure. There are also can also be known as MBaaS, mobile backend service. They are usually using with mobile, and one sample is Firebase, where we can use to implement control of users, notifications, database storage are completely implemented in Firebase. We don't have to do any of that. We just configure Firebase, implement our application as a visual container that call that backend structure. Okay, is a way to do it. What it changed for us as developer is that we don't care about how to implement the backend. We just use it as an API. Okay, we just care about uh, implementing the front end of our applications. Of course, it's not the most cheap way to deal with cloud, but it's a very fast option to use backend. We have DAS, data as a service, provide cloud just a data repository. Okay, we can put just our data in the cloud. Many database players already have this option, already said cloud providers, okay, where we can put our data on. And there are cloud providers that don't have the databases, but also provide data as a service, okay? And from the development perspective, we don't change anything. We just put our database that was implemented locally to a cloud. And from IT perspective, the only thing that changed, maybe we don't need more the DBA, okay, the database administration that we need before, because all the database clone, database backup, all are being done in the cloud. We just configure our cloud management console, and that's it. Okay, so we basically eliminate that uh, technology aspect from our IT team. We have also CAS, container as a service, where we can deploy our own containers. Okay, and in this model we just care about our containers. We can use with Delphi because Delphi supports containers, so we can generate our server side on containers and put that containers on some cloud provider. Okay, and from development perspective, don't change anything, because if you already are using containers, you have just put your containers on a cloud provider. And the last and most disruptive way to use cloud is FaaS, function as a service. FaaS has different names between most popular cloud providers. Amazon call it Lambda, Google call uh, functions, and Azure call functions as well. And these are the most cost-effective way to deal with cloud. So if you are choosing rewrite your architecture, think carefully about FaaS, okay? Because FaaS is the most efficient, the most cost-efficient cloud architecture. We have also DaaS too, I put here, desktop as a service. is a service that where cloud can provide remote access to our applications by app streaming. And with that, we can, for example, provide access to a VCL application on a OSX um, operational system, okay, without writing almost anything in source code. This is not a very cheap way to use cloud, but maybe this model give you some opportunities that other models don't give you, okay? The opportunity to put your app on a streaming and run from everywhere without have to rewrite anything, almost anything. Some maybe some calls, something will be a little different, but in general, you don't have to write your entire application to run that application in many other operational systems. Okay, just a little disclaimer here. We have some concepts that usually are being used with cloud, okay? But these two concepts, microservices and serverless, that we'll talk now, they aren't technologies, they are concepts, okay? So we can use microservices, the concept, with many technologies, okay, that cloud providers. But we can also use microservices without cloud. We can use microservices inside our own hardware IT solution, okay? Serverless, just the same. We can use with cloud, work very well, but we can use it also without, because they are concepts, they are not technologies, okay? So about the concept of microservices. Um, we can apply without cloud, okay? It feels well because with cloud, because the malleability of the cloud, and some ways to do microservice is using with platform, or where we can put many services in that platform. So without instead of have a big backend server in that platform in IaaS or Apache, we break down that server in some business models and publish each business model on that platform server. We can also break it on containers. Okay, so we put each service, each microservice on a container and put all that containers on a CAS server. We can also put microservices on functions, but here we must be careful because functions usually don't armazenate states, and functions, in functions, we have execution time limit, and also we have cost by execution time. So if you are using large amount of business model, business rules that you have to validate, maybe FAS will not be the better approach to use a service, okay? In this case, if your system is very, very complex, maybe containers or platforms are a better approach to put your services, okay? And other concept that we have is serverless. Okay, serverless as well fit very well with cloud because of FAS, but it's not necessarily cloud dependent. It's a concept we can use with many other technologies. The advantages are increase of source use between applications. Let's give an example, a sample here. You suppose that you have some zip routine in your system, okay, or image processing routine, and you want to use that image processing routine in all your applications, okay? You just put that image processing routine in a fast function server, and all your applications, instead of calling a local routine, now we're calling a server routine to do that job. And so with that, it is more easy for us to reuse the source between all our applications because it's a server call. It's not more a piece of code that we are using. And we have more flexibility to update it. When we change the server, all the clients are automatically updated. And the functions only are instantiated when the application calls it. So when we call a serverless function, the server side instantiate the function, execute it, and close it back, go back to non-action. Okay, and many cloud providers are uh, talking about in the future we can access to Win32 applications as well running on backend of fast servers. Okay, but now I don't know any cloud provider that work very well with fast on backend. We have to use other kind of technologies, uh, usually specific technologies to write some kind of fast. Okay, and fast is the more cheap cloud service in many cloud providers, as I told you before. Uh, and from the client side, it don't change anything. We just are consuming a, a API, a external application server. Okay. So how to apply clouds? Well, a little recipe will be choose a cloud provider on your own preference. Choose architectural model to adapt. Okay, you can go first to EAS, to infrastructure, and after that partially migrate from that. And migration on the fly is the most adopted strategy. Okay, so you don't have to rewrite all the code to go to the cloud. And from source, remember, from the client view. Okay, uh, cloud is just another REST backend. As I told you before, it's just a computer of someone else, and that we call cloud. It's just another computer. And from the server side, you can use many technologies in a lot of players to publish your Delphi application as a backend. Okay, you can use not only REST, you can use SOAP. You have many access. Many cloud providers provide many access to do to publish your backend application. Okay, we have here some codes that just samples that just consume some APIs and provide some backend server. So you can read that or download that. Is on GitHub if you want it. And about the pros and cons of cloud, we have scale and cost as a pro, choice and agility as a pro as well. We have access to next generation architectures as serverless and microservices and containers. We have encapsulated and management change. Okay, we have only to configure something to everything change the way that works. And for cons, we have security. Very attention on this topic, please, folks, because I already have seen many people uh, having some attacks on cloud providers, and you'll be very careful about security. We have lack of control because the cloud is hands of someone else. We have liability on our server, on our cloud provider, and the lock-in. Lock-in is a very important topic to you consider as well, because lock-in is when your cloud provider blocks you to reach or your data or your applications or your customers from your server services. I mean, think your all your application is putting on a cloud provider, and that cloud provider locks all the access. You don't have more access to your data, to your information that on the cloud. Maybe some legislation help you in this case, but even so, you can have a lot of trouble. So be careful when you choose your cloud provider. Be careful that you read all the right documentation to don't get caught in this lock-in from your cloud provider, okay? So really thank you for your attention, and I may be here to, for answer some Q&A. And here are my information contact. If you need something, just let me know.
All right, great. Thank you, Dion.
I thank you for the opportunity, Dim.
So there's a question here about latency with FAAS. If the service only starts when being called.
It depends on your cloud provider. Usually the server only starts when was a application call, okay? But you can configure that. And of course, if you are already running the server, like you are using a container, okay, always on, uh, will be more expensive than using a serverless approach where the server is not started.
Sure. It's kind of a trade-off. You got to decide what's more important and then optimize for that, it would seem like.
Yes, but Dim, if you reach that links that I put on my presentation and see how much cheap is using fast is
Sorry, I muted you.
no problem. I thought it was me. It's very cheap to use fast instead of other cloud models.
Mm-hmm. I know I have a friend that works in administering cloud infrastructure, and he says that a lot of people don't consider their use cases enough, because sometimes if you don't consider use cases enough, you could end up paying a lot more for cloud if you don't you really think it through as far as like how much uptime you have and how many calls you're going to have and stuff like that.
Of course, and Dim, as I told you, is the the cost aspect of the cloud is another topic. Okay, is you have to put the numbers down, see what you use about the application. Is not a simple decision, but many companies are considering to migrate to cloud. That's because I think that is important for a Delphi developer know what technologies we have to use with cloud. But it's not a simple decision. I think now just go to cloud and go. Maybe as you say, you can go after paying more that you pay now.
Yeah. So could you have your application most hosted on multiple cloud providers to mitigate lock-in?
You can, but think how hard will be administrate that. And lock-in only happens when you stop to paying your cloud provider, and may block you for reach your application or your data. And in that case, maybe it's more effective you manage that risk in other way that using multiple cloud providers. Okay, but because think on your client application, if you have three cloud providers to reach, would be very weird situation. One cloud doesn't communicate, you use another, you have timeout in each call. And think of deploying all the cloud functions, using cloud functions as example. you have a different kind of way of work, architecture, that maybe one cloud function will not work on other cloud provider.
Yeah. I think your best, I would seem like your best bet would be to have everything, or you want to have the ability to spin up a new cloud, right? So even let's say you lost everything that was in the cloud, you'd want to make sure you had a backup and the ability to reconstitute your cloud services with the same provider and then potentially with other providers as well.
That will be perfect.
Yeah, even though they do have backups for you, you still want to make sure you have your own backups. It's all a matter of
Please.
how tolerant you are of risk, I guess.
Please, you do that, because I see many customers had, as I tell in my presentation, many customers of mine had some kind of ATEC, and some of them lost their backup, and the cloud provider didn't can reach those backup, and they simply lost their data, and was a large cloud provider, and was a very strange situation, but it can happen. So please consider cloud is good, but is not everything.
Yeah. Well, it's like we saw a couple times there was big outages that Amazon was down for, and it's rare that Amazon, all of the AWS is down, but it does happen, and so it can happen. You're typically going to have better reliability using a good cloud provider, but it can happen. So again, it's just a matter of
Yes.
how risk tolerant you are. There's a question here about, it says, in Delphi, we develop a lot of apps for IIS and creating apps by ports for managing individually. How do we do that for a Linux cloud?
I think for this approach, maybe, or you using a cloud provider that don't use Linux in the backend, okay, and use a service like a PaaS, a platform as a service, and just put your IaaS application DLLs on that, okay. Or if you want to migrate to fast to function, you have to rewrite. Okay, I don't think there is compatible technologies.
Okay. How does GDPR affect hosting systems in the cloud? The General Data Protection Regulation from the EU.
Okay. Of many cloud providers already have GDPR implemented, so your own application will just have to follow their rules, okay. But I'm not sure about each cloud provider what change specifically with which one.
Yeah, GDPR is one of those things there's not a simple answer for. But yeah, they should have some sort of GDPR compliance, and just need to make sure you include that in your process. In your point of view, what's the best strategy for when the cloud is down? Should you have a backup cloud provider, or what do you recommend?
I will say them that that's depend on the project, okay, because there are projects that you can use offline data, and you can just put your data after, okay. And there are projects that maybe you just have to communicate with the server to go on, like a sales management, and in that case maybe will be better to have a cloud backup. But in many cases, Dim, as you told before, uh, if the cloud provider are down, maybe all the internet are down, and not only your cloud provider. So have another cloud provider maybe will not solve your problem.
Yeah, and there's a lot of typically a good cloud provider is going to have good resiliency and be up more often. And you could have multiple mid-tier cloud providers that are all relying on the same, maybe AWS or other backbone infrastructure. So yeah, you're like you said, you could have one just because your cloud provider's down, all other cloud providers might be down too.
Yes, and if your project allow you to do more asynchronously communication, that will be the better answer, right, Dim? Because you only do the communication when you have internet or you can reach your backup server, and but if your project doesn't allow that, then it's more complicated.
Yeah, that's a good point to have. Make sure you're already written for a where you might occasionally be disconnected, and to have some sort of offline data briefcase model. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. All right. Well, great. Thank you so much for this session. It looks like we got through the questions. We will see you back online tomorrow. You've got a few other sessions you're helping out with as well. So thank you, thank you,
Yes.
thank you.
I thank you, Jim, and anything you need, just ask.
All right. We'll take care, and we'll talk to everybody later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.